Hi, welcome to Laura's View and Tarot 2. I'm really glad you're here. Today's date is Thursday, October 13th, 2022. And in this video, I thought that you and I and the tarot cards could take a look at this week's distraction or one of the top stories, and that is the fact that Tulsi Gabbard has left the Democratic Party. So I'm going to find out what the cards have to say as you do. I don't pre-read them, but let's look at Tulsi a little closer. This is by no means an in-depth synopsis of her life. Okay. Now, kudos to Tulsi. She chose to serve her country in the National Guard, and that Guard unit was activated. She ended up in Iraq, and for part of her, she was deployed. And no matter what her motivation was, because I know at age 18, when I went into the National Guard, my motivation wasn't patriotism. I was running away from home and trying to do it in a responsible way. So I am not going to criticize anybody or look at motives behind their service. She served. I thank her for it. That's important. Okay. It's also important, an important component to a resume if you're part of a long-range plan. And I think that may be the case with Tulsi. Now, understand, I am understandably cynical about anyone who's currently in politics, especially those that have already had something of a career in politics. I just don't, I'm willing for the cards to tell me different, but I just don't have a lot of hope that until we have some major changes to our world, we're actually going to have representation that is non-corrupted, non-compromised, and that we can have some pride and faith in. Okay. Now, I personally see Tulsi's departure from the Democratic Party as inevitable. Let me show you why I say that and where I found it. And I tried to use very mainstream sources so that YouTube wouldn't mind my sharing this information with you. Okay, according to the Washington Times, and this is going back to, I believe, 2015, Tulsi had a rather vocal and well-publicized feud with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was like this, very important in the Democratic Party National Committee member. And so there was a feud there. It wasn't the only one she had. Okay, let's see. Then there was the feud with Hillary Clinton. This is from 2015. I found this in the USA Today. Okay, or pardon me, 2019. So October 24th, 2019, there's an article by Nicholas Wu, and it kind of recaps what her disagreement was with Hillary Clinton. She even went so far as to file apparently a defamation lawsuit that was later dropped. But I would say that that would be very limiting to your bright future in a party if you go against two of the top people like that. So I think she saw that too, that it was inevitable, and she actually was joined forces with Bernie Sanders in his bid for president. Now, this all could have been part of an eye-opening process to her. Okay. And, you know, that old saying, I've said it in a previous video, if you're young and you're conservative, you haven't got a heart. If you're old and you're liberal, you haven't got a brain. So normally as life experience matches up with pretty theories and you see, you know, you get some real world experience, people do tend to, over time, move more towards the middle, if not to the right, in their politics, unless they're just so darn determined to be ultra liberal, no matter what the standpoint is, that they stay there. Same thing with people that are far, far right. Okay, most people are somewhere in the continuum, depending on what the item under discussion might be. And that's the way it should be. But I was wondering, and what we'll be asking the cards in a minute is Tulsi Gabbard, is her turning away from the Democratic Party and slowly getting more conservative? Are these just what she feels like are the smartest moves to continue a career in politics? Or is it a true reflection of her personal convictions? And is she willing to, over the course of her career, stick with those convictions? You know, there's no problem with maturing and changing and revising your mind, your worldview, but you also have to have the backbone and grit once you do to take any heat or fallout that comes with it. Now, apparently in the past, she hasn't had that grit or backbone. She went so far even to apologize for her father's political views and what she termed bigotry. And that's up to him to apologize for, you know, not for her. So I see some things that make me question, that make me wonder, and a couple more things before we get into the cards. Hang on just a second, okay? If you're not familiar with this site I'm going to show you, you should be, okay? It is the justfactsvotesmart.org, and it lists politicians, their biography, their votes, which is very important because it doesn't matter what they say, it's what they do, and the votes are what they do. Their positions, which hopefully reflect the votes, but not always. Their ratings, their speeches, their funding. Rather interesting. When you go to page 3 for Tulsi, you'll see that even though she was able to vote on the first impeachment of number 45, she just abstained from voting, which means she wasn't with her party, but I don't know. I think that's a political move. She should have had an opinion and acted on it. And even in the second farce of impeachment of 45, she came up with some legislation that was supposed to send him a message, but again, didn't actively vote against him, but wasn't exactly in his camp. Now, if you want to just have a short version of some of her positions, let's look at this. She's pro-choice. She generally supports gun control legislation. She supports government funding for the development of renewable energy and wants us to get away from fossil fuels. And no statement of whether that's before we have some viable alternatives or not. She supported the federal regulation of greenhouse gas emissions. She did not support repealing the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare. Okay. She is not a proponent of having a border wall finished on our southern border. And she is not in favor of having immigrants who are unlawfully present return to their country of origin before they're eligible for citizenship. So those are some of her stances. Now, I found a little information about her service. She was, again, in the, and apparently is still connected with them because it's 2003 to present. She's a lieutenant colonel, and that is by virtue of the officer candidate school. As a state representative, she was, and in conjunction with her service, it was she was a candidate for that and became an officer. So good for her. And she is attached with a PSYOPs division. That's kind of interesting. So let's see what the cards have to say about this lady. Again, I think this is our distraction of the week, and where our focus and our intention and our energy should be going is to saying enough already. What about the children? Are they all safe? Are they all rescued? Are they all healing? What about Durham? Are more than our indictments going to be unsealed and acted on and publicly acknowledged? You know, what is she distracting us from is one question I have, but all I'm going to ask the cards is, since she is our distraction of the week, she is actively in politics and apparently wants to make a career of it and advance as far as she can. Is her conversion to conservative values genuine and lasting? And will her voting and service record reflect that? So that's our question for the universe about Tulsi Gabbard, or the person seen in the public eye and who will be acting as Tulsi Gabbard. Is that conversion to conservative values going to be lasting? And is her record of service going to reflect that consistently? Thank you. Let's see what the cards have to say. Okay, is this conversion to conservatism permanent lasting? Will her service record reflect same? And is there other universal information or advice the universe has about Tulsi Gabbard, the person seen in the public eye as Tulsi Gabbard and acting as Tulsi Gabbard, just so we can make sure the universe focuses on the person we're most interested in. Okay, we have the Eight of Cups, King of Pentacles, Queen of Wands, Three of Pentacles, Seven of Pentacles, Three of Hearts, pardon me, Three of Swords, where'd I get hearts? And Two of Cups. Okay, well, Miss Gabbard is and her situation about her leaving the Democratic Party and espousing more conservative values is indicated by the Eight of Cups, which is interesting because that's a turning point type of thing. Now, this means that she's not going to return to the Democratic Party at any point in the future. But our question was, is this conversion to conservative values one that will be lasting and permanent? Will her service record reflect that? And clarifying that this is a turning point for her is the King of Pentacles. Now, the King of Pentacles is about high ambition. So she has she's a very ambitious lady. And more than working towards conviction she has, the ambition is the overriding thing, which we often see in politics, okay? The Queen of Wands is the recent past for her, and that's one of inspiration. And the Queen of Wands, unlike politics in general, can be very, almost brutally honest, okay? Very self-assured. And she made this decision to change, and to do so was one that was well thought out with optimism, because somehow she came to this is all playing out. It wasn't just her convictions and she called a press conference. This is part of an agreement and a foundation. Someone is setting her up to see some realization of her high ambition and move forward in politics. Now, I'm not getting any information that she's going to have act on these new values she's talking about. We have the Three of Swords. When he shows up in my political reads, he indicates two things. There's lots of lies going on. And number two, it often indicates that at some point that person will be or already has. Now it's showing up in the future. So Tulsi Gabbard 2.0 is going to be working on her career at some point. So not seeing any justice cards here. In looking forward in the future, we've got the Seven of Pentacles. And so she's planning to profit from her ambition and this agreement. Got another Cups card here, again, showing some agreements going on. More money coming to her way because of this. And then the final card we're getting is Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups can be a little self-absorbed. So I think this kind of epitomizes Miss Gabbard. Her long view is for herself and her career, and I think she's in for some big surprises about what she's buying into and a party to and made agreements with. So interesting. One other thing, it may be of interest for you to know, and this is just available information just from Wikipedia if you like, that Miss Gabbard was homeschooled except for 2 years when she attended an all-girls missionary school in the, I believe, Philippines. So there's some questions about that school, and I know that number 44 had attended school for a couple of years in Indonesia, which is not that far away, and that is a three-letter agency playground. So it just kind of makes you wonder what brought about the career in public service and everything else going on with her. All right. At the moment, as a former Bernie Sanders proponent, I kind of think of her as a Bernie Sanders in a pantsuit at the moment. But she's very ambitious. She's planning to go as far as she can. And just remember, Miss Gabbard, just because you announce that you've left the Democratic Party doesn't mean you get to jump on the MAGA bus and take the wheel. Okay? So best of luck to you. And I hope that at some point you really do start to act on convictions that you truly hold and inspire confidence and trust in those you represent. But at the moment, we, voting public, are understandably skeptical about everybody in that arena, and we're questioning. And the cards are telling us tonight we're right to question. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. And until the next time I see you, I just wish that you the best of everything, including critical thinking, using logic, and using your discernment on who to follow, who to trust, and what to believe. Thank you. Good night.